Welcome to the final episode in our series titled The Implementation of House Bill 22, Collaborating to Build a Better Accountability System. In this episode, we'll explore the Closing the Gaps domain. So we'll start with a quick review. The new accountability system has 3 domains: student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. To calculate the overall grade, we'll take the better grade from the first 2 domains and combine that with the grade from the closing the gaps domain, which must be at least 30% of the overall grade. This domain disaggregates data by student groups, and it's how we're planning to meet the requirements of ESSA. So for this domain, we'll look at 15 individual student groups. These are the student groups and indicators that we are planning to evaluate for each student group. I won't read through the list of student groups. They're pretty much the same ones that we've been using for several years now, with 2 exceptions. Students formerly in special education and students who are continuously enrolled. We will take a closer look at those 2 student groups in just a few moments. So the indicators we're using: academic achievement in reading, mathematics, writing, science, and social studies. We're looking at growth in reading and mathematics for elementary schools and middle schools. We're looking at graduation rates, English language learner proficiency status, the college and career and military readiness performance, that's from the student achievement domain, and then at or above meets grade level performance in reading and mathematics for grades 3 through 8. So let's take a look at a few of the new student groups that we'll be using. House Bill 22 requires tracking current and former special education students. This will be the first time that former special education students are looked at as a student group in the accountability system. The challenge is that there are rarely enough kids to measure this at the campus level. Our current modeling shows us that when minimum size criteria is applied, there's only 6 campuses and something like 110 districts that have sufficient data for this indicator. So currently, our current modeling uses 2 years of formal special education. So this is a feedback opportunity for how long in the past should we look to see if a student has ever been served by special education. Like I said, currently we're looking at 2 years. Should we use 3, 4, maybe more? House Bill 22 also requires us to look at students who are continuously enrolled. This is a tentative definition, and we certainly welcome feedback on how to improve it. This is difficult to measure, especially at the campus level, because of the number of different grade spans that the 8,600 or so campuses in Texas serves. So here's how it works for a district. If a student in 4th grade or higher is in the district on the snapshot date of the current year, we look back at each of the previous 3 years for 4 years total to see if they were in the district on the snapshot date in each of those years. If the student was, then he or she is counted as continuously enrolled. If not, then the student is not counted as continuously enrolled. For students that are in 3rd grade, we look at the current year and the previous 2. So students in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade will not be considered continuously enrolled. Here's how it works for a campus. If a student in 4th grade or higher is on the campus on the snapshot date, we look back at each of the previous 3 years for a total of 4 to see if the student was in the district on the snapshot date in each of those years. A student on a campus on the snapshot date in the current year and in the district in each of the previous 3 years is counted as continuously enrolled. If not, then the student is not counted as continuously enrolled. And for students that are in the 3rd grade, we look at the current year for the campus and the previous 2 years in the district. Here's kind of a pictorial explanation of this. We're looking at students that are continuously enrolled in a district. So each of those orange boxes with the 3 buildings inside represents a district. So reading from left to right, we look in 2017, and the student is in the district on the snapshot date. So we look back at each of the previous 3 years for a total of 4. So last year in 2016, the student was in 9th grade in this district. In 2015, the student was in 8th grade in this district. And in 2014, the student was in 7th grade in this district. Therefore, this student is considered continuously enrolled. Still looking at the district level, if the student is in the district on the snapshot date in 2017 in grade 10, 2016 snapshot date, they were in the district in grade 9, and 2015 snapshot date, they were in the district in grade 8, but was not in the district in 2014, then they're not counted as continuously enrolled. In 2016, they're in the district on the snapshot date at 2nd grade, and in 2015, they're in the district on the snapshot date in 1st grade, then they're considered continuously enrolled. Still looking at continuous enrollment in the district, we're starting in 3rd grade in 2017. Notice, so this student was in the district on the snapshot date in 2017, was not in the district on the snapshot date in 2016, but was in the district on the snapshot date in 2015, that student is still considered non-continuously enrolled because there's not 3 continuous years of enrollment. Now we're looking at the campus level. So again, reading from left to right, in the snapshot date in 2017, this student was on the campus. In the snapshot date in 2016, the student was in the district. The same goes for 2015 and 2014, so this student is considered continuously enrolled. Still looking at continuous enrollment at the campus level, reading from left to right, the snapshot date in 2017, the student was on the campus. In 2016, the student was in the district. In 2015, the student was in the district. In 2014, the student was not in the district. Therefore, this student is considered non-continuously enrolled. Now we're looking at the same example, we're just starting in 3rd grade. So in 2017, the student was in 3rd grade on this campus. In 2016, the student was in 2nd grade on the snapshot date. And in 2015, the student was in 1st grade in the snapshot date. This student is considered continuously enrolled. Last example, on the snapshot date in 2017, the student was in 3rd grade. The snapshot date in 2016, the student was not in the district. And in snapshot date in 2015, the student was in 1st grade. This student is considered non-continuously enrolled. So because it's kind of confusing to think about continuously enrolled at a campus, and you remember I said it's really difficult to do because the difference in grade spans among all the campuses in Texas, I'm going to use a local district as an example. So we're going to pretend this is Round Rock Independent School District. And so if we look at this example, and now I'm going to read from right to left to see if that can add some clarity. So in 2014, this student was at Cedar Valley Middle School, 7th grade, in Round Rock Independent School District. In 2015, that student moved to 8th grade at Cedar Valley Middle School in Round Rock ISD. In 2016, the student entered 9th grade at Round Rock High School. And then in 2017, the student moved to 10th grade at McNeil High School. All of these campuses are in Round Rock ISD. Even though the student this is the student's 1st year at McNeil High School, they're still considered continuously enrolled at McNeil High School. The last student group we're going to look at is English learners. So our current modeling has us looking at current English learners and monitored English learners in one group, and then current English learners by themselves in a separate group. The combination of current and monitored is required by ESSA, but we're not required to track current ELs as their own student group. So there are a couple opportunities for feedback here. First of all, should we track current English learners separately or just track what ESSA requires? Also, for monitored ELs, how many years of monitoring should we look at? Our current modeling has us do 4, but should we do 2 or maybe 3? Now we're going to take a look at the indicators, and I'm going to explain how each of these indicators aligns with ESSA. So ESSA requires 5 indicators. The first one is academic achievement. So for the academic achievement indicator, we're going to use performance on STAR at the approaches grade level performance standard for all subjects. The targets will be held constant for 5 years. And Safe Harbor is available for each indicator, and we're going to look at Safe Harbor in a little greater detail in just a few moments. The second indicator that ESSA requires is growth for elementary and middle schools. So we're going to base this on the school progress domain. For high schools, we're going to look at graduation rates. And these are the federal graduation rates. They are not the state graduation rates that include exclusions. Once again, the targets will stay stable for 5 years, and safe harbor can be applied. The next indicator required by ESSA is the progress of English learners. So for that, we're going to use the TELPAS progress rate, which measures performance from prior year to current year as demonstrated by increasing levels on TELPAS. Feedback opportunity here is that because of all the changes in TELPAS, should we postpone our integration of TELPAS given these changes, we'd have to adjust the domain in a year or two to address this, and we would have to supply the federal government with something that measures English language proficiency status. Here's how we calculate the progress of English learners. So the progress rate reflects an English learner's progress towards achieving English language proficiency. Data source is TELPAS results, and the accountability subset rules are applied. A student is considered having made progress if he or she advances by at least one score of the composite rating from the prior year to the current year, or his or her result is advanced high. If prior year composite rating is not available, we'll look back to sometimes 3 years. The minimum size criteria is 25, and small numbers analysis is applied if there are fewer than 25 current English learner students. And the last indicator required by ESSA is described as an indicator of school quality or student success. So for the school quality and student success indicator, we're using the same college, career, and military readiness indicators that we use in the student achievement domain for high schools. For elementary schools and middle schools, we'll be using performance on reading and mathematics STAR exams at the meets grade level standard or above. And again, target should stay stable for 5 years, and safe harbor is available. So those are the student groups and indicators that we're planning to use to align the state's accountability system with the requirements of ESSA. One way to assign a grade for this domain is by looking at the percentage of data points that meet or exceed a target, but that doesn't address by how much a target is missed. So here's a feedback opportunity. Should we look at just how many targets are missed, or by how much a campus or district misses a target? So we're hoping for the first time in 15 years that we will have only one accountability system, because we'll be meeting the requirements of ESSA in the closing the gaps domain. Everything that we've described so far about this domain is in our state plan. Before we can move forward with this domain as we've described it to you, we have to get approval from the United States Department of Education. So some of these indicators may change based on the feedback that we get from the Department of Education. So this is one way we're looking at reporting the outcomes for the Closing the Gaps domain. This looks a little bit like our system safeguard reports that we've been using for the past several years in accountability. And we're going to look at each one of these a little bit closer. So here's a closer look at the academic achievement portion of the report. The performance target will be given in the top row of the report, and for each subject and student group, there will be a Y if the performance measure was met and an N if it wasn't. The targets shown in this on this slide and the following slides are actually straight out of Texas's ESSA state plan. So it's the same for growth. The performance target will be given at the top of the report, and for each subject and student group, there will be a Y if the performance target was met and an N if it wasn't. The graduation rate indicator will also have a Y if the target was met and an N if it wasn't. The reason code for graduation targets tells you how a campus or a district did or did not meet the target, which could be met via by way of a 4-year target, a 5-year target, or even a 6-year graduation rate target. And I'll say this again just to be clear, these are the federal definitions for graduation rates. They do not have state exclusions. This is a portion of the report that shows progress of English learners. Like the previous 2 slides, it shows the target and whether it has been met. For the school quality and student success part of the report, the performance target will be given at the top row of the report, and for each indicator, just like the others, and student group, there will be a Y if the performance target was met and an N if it wasn't. So this is the section of the report where we will determine which campuses are targeted. And it will be based on consecutive years of missing the target on at least one of these indicators. So here's a feedback opportunity. Should we determine targeted schools based on an overall student group performance? Say, for instance, a single student group misses any one of these indicators for a consecutive number of years? Should we look at it by overall performance by indicator? Is there one indicator that's missed over consecutive years by any student group? Or should we look at it by student group and indicator? So in order for a school to be targeted, a specific student group would have to miss a specific indicator for several years in a row. Here's how we're planning to identify schools for comprehensive support and improvement. Lowest performing 5% of campuses based on overall A through F grade. High schools with less than a 67% graduation rate, or certain targeted schools that do not improve in a specified time. We're going to begin this in the summer of 2018 based on 17-18 data, and we're going to update it at least every 3 years thereafter. And so this is an opportunity for feedback. Should we identify these schools every year, every other year, or every 3 years? So each of these indicators will have the option of safe harbor, the whole purpose of which is to avoid unintended consequences and also recognize improvement over time. It's available for all indicators, and it's available for districts and campuses that do not meet the target on any indicator. Basically what it does is districts and campuses that miss a target will have no negative consequences if they make sufficient progress over the previous year. And the progress must be enough that if continued at that rate, a district or campus would meet an interim or long-term goal in a specified amount of time. So rather than having a long narrative that explains how safe harbor is calculated, we're just going to go through a few examples. So to calculate safe harbor, the variables that you need are last year's result, this year's result, the goal, whether interim or long-term, and the years to meet the goal. So here's an example scenario. Performance on mathematics STAR by students in special education. Last year's score was 45. This year's score is 53. The interim goal is 80, and the years to meet the goal is 5. So last year's result missed the target by 35 points. Because the years to meet this goal is 5, this campus must improve its score for this indicator by 7 points each year. This year's score is 8 points better than last year's, so safe harbor is invoked, and there are no negative consequences for missing the target on this indicator. Here's a second example. Performance on mathematics STAR by students served in special education. Last year's score is 60. This year's score is 61. The long-term goal is 90, and the years to meet the goal is 15. So last year's result missed the target by 30 points. Because the years to meet the goal is 15, this campus must improve its score for this indicator by 2 points each year. This year's score is 1 point better than last year's. So safe harbor is not invoked, and there are negative consequences of missing that target for this indicator. So here's a feedback opportunity. Should we apply the same standards for expectations to all student groups, given that we have safe harbor rules? So here's a kind of frequency distribution showing how elementary campuses perform with and without safe harbor rules. So notice that without safe harbor, that's the frequency distribution on the far left, only 13.43% of elementary schools met between 81 and 100% of their achievement targets. With safe harbor using the 5-year target, that number increases to 17.67%. And with safe harbor using the 15-year target, it improves to 18.57%. So this shows the effect of safe harbor for elementary schools. And here's how middle schools performed with and without safe harbor. You notice on the frequency distribution on the far left, without safe harbor, 7.44% of middle schools met between 81 and 100% of their achievement targets. With safe harbor using the 5-year target, that increases to 15.06%, and with the 15-year target, it increases even more to 18.81%. And then here's how high schools performed. So without safe harbor, 16%, a little bit over 16%, met between 81 and 100% of their achievement targets. With safe harbor using the 5-year target, that number increases to just over 24%. And then with the 15-year target, it increases to 27.12%. So that takes a look at the closing the gaps domain, the student groups we're planning to use, the indicators we're planning to use, and how safe harbor is calculated. So here are some of the common questions we get. Must every student group meet each of the indicators? Well, campuses and districts will be evaluated for each student group and associated indicator that has data and meets minimum size criteria. Must a district or campus meet every one of the indicators for which it has data in order to make an A? Not necessarily. Our current plan is to determine grade cut points based on the percentage of indicators met, but remember that's a feedback opportunity that we spoke of earlier. If, for 3 consecutive years, a school meets an indicator only because of safe harbor, would that be a targeted school? The answer is no. If looking at students who formerly received special education services as a student group affects so few districts and campuses, why is it being included in accountability? Quite simply, it's required by House Bill 22. Why does the accountability system now include former ELs in their 3rd and 4th year of monitoring? Well, now ESSA allows it, and it's something we're exploring. And again, remember, like I mentioned in an earlier slide, this is an area for feedback. And the final question is, will the target for the academic achievement portion be the same as the target for the student achievement domain? So it's academic achievement portion of this domain. Will it be the same target as the student achievement domain? And the answer is no. The 2 scores are calculated differently. So that concludes both our look at the Closing the Gaps domain and our series entitled The Implementation of House Bill 22, Collaborating to Build a Better Accountability System. We certainly hope we'll be getting lots of feedback from you. In fact, we have an email address specifically for that. We have a web page dedicated to the development of the A through F system. We have resources on the web regarding accountability more generally. And you also see there our email address and phone number in case you have any questions. So again, thank you for joining us for this series. We hope it's been informative and very helpful, and we really look forward to getting your feedback. Thank you.